My child, do not scroll past this moment, because I did not allow you to arrive here by chance. You may think your hand moved here by habit, that your eye simply stopped here for no reason, that this is just another passing moment in a long day. But I tell you now that I watched the exact second your attention slowed, and I knew this would be the moment where my voice would meet you. There are many things that pass before your eyes each day, many words, many sounds, many distractions, many voices asking for your attention, but I did not allow all of that to decide this moment. I placed this before you because your heart is standing at a place where silence would no longer help you. You have walked through hours carrying thoughts you did not fully explain even to yourself. You have continued moving while inwardly asking questions you did not always speak aloud. You have smiled when needed, answered when required, and kept many things inside because you no longer knew how to explain what felt unfinished in your spirit. But I know exactly where you are inside this hour, and because I know, I am speaking now in a way you must not dismiss. If you skip what I am saying now, you may step away from the very answer you have begged me for in silence. I know the prayers you spoke clearly, but I also know the ones that never became words. I know the nights when your heart reached toward me without full language. I know the quiet moments when you looked upward inside yourself and simply hoped that somehow I understood what you could not explain. I did understand. I heard every silent request hidden beneath your breathing. I heard every inward question that rose while no one else knew your thoughts had become heavy. There were moments you stopped asking openly because waiting had tired you, because hope felt difficult to hold with the same strength, because disappointment had taught you caution. Yet even when your voice became quiet, your spirit still reached toward me, and I never missed it. That is why I say again, do not move past this quickly, because answers do not always arrive in the form you expected, and sometimes the answer begins with a word that corrects what your heart is preparing to carry next. The enemy worked hard to keep your eyes elsewhere today, but I overruled that plan. You do not always see how often distraction is arranged around the exact moment truth is meant to reach you. Some distractions look ordinary. Some come through tiredness, through restlessness, through sudden thoughts, through unnecessary worry, through small interruptions that seem meaningless. But often the things that try hardest to scatter your attention appear most ordinary because they do not need to frighten you if they can simply delay you. There were many chances for your mind to remain elsewhere today. Many chances for your thoughts to stay occupied with things that do not heal you. Things that do not guide you, things that only keep you circling what has already exhausted you. But I did not allow distraction to win this hour. I reached beyond the noise because what you need to hear now carries weight your spirit cannot afford to miss. You have wondered why certain moments feel unusually heavy, why some days begin with strange inward pressure, why certain thoughts repeat more strongly than before. My child, not every heavy feeling means something is wrong, but some heaviness appears because there is resistance against what is trying to reach you. The enemy does not always fight with visible darkness. Often the enemy simply hopes you remain too distracted to notice when truth arrives, too tired to listen deeply, too quick to move on, too emotionally full to receive correction. But today that plan did not hold. I overruled what tried to keep your eyes elsewhere because what I have to say now belongs directly to where your spirit stands. I pulled your attention here because what is about to happen in your life cannot begin without this word. Some movements around your life require preparation inside you before they become visible outside you. Some changes cannot safely arrive until your heart has first received what it needs to stand correctly when they do. That is why I speak before certain doors open, before certain conversations unfold, before certain realizations fully reach you. My child, There are things near your path that require you to hear clearly now, so that when they appear, you do not interpret them through fear, through old disappointment, or through tired thinking. What is about to happen does not begin with visible signs first. It begins with inner alignment. It begins when your spirit hears what your mind has resisted hearing clearly. It begins when truth settles deeper than anxiety. And because that beginning matters, I pulled your attention here before anything else could fully claim it. There is a reason your heart paused here when many other things tried to take your focus. You felt something slow within you, even if you did not name it immediately. Something inside you recognized wait before your mind formed explanation. That inward pause was not accidental. Your spirit often notices what your thoughts understand later. There are moments when your heart responds before logic arrives, and this is one of those moments. I know how much has asked for your attention lately. I know how many concerns have stood near your thoughts. I know how easy it would have been to keep moving without stopping deeply enough to hear me. Yet your heart paused, and that pause matters. It matters because inwardly you know when something carries more than ordinary words. You know when a sentence touches a place already waiting quietly inside you. That pause was not weakness. It was recognition. Right, you are my peace in the chaos. Lord, if He calms every storm inside you. Every word you are hearing carries my seal, and I do not place my seal where timing is unimportant. My seal means this is not empty comfort given to pass through your emotions for a moment and disappear. My seal means what reaches you now is attached to purpose. I do not seal what has no assignment for your spirit. I do not mark words that do not belong to your present hour. Timing matters because some truths lose strength if heard too early, and some become harder to receive if heard too late. But now is the right moment because your spirit is open enough to hear what must settle before your next inward step. My seal also means you must not treat this lightly. Not because you should fear, but because what carries my mark deserves your full attention. There are many words spoken around you daily, many opinions, many voices, many explanations, many thoughts that rise and pass. But not every word carries life for where you stand now. Some words only fill time. Some words only stir emotion briefly. Some words only sound near truth while lacking peace beneath them. But when my seal rests on a word, it enters deeper. It begins uncovering what has stayed hidden. It begins correcting what quietly drifted. It begins strengthening what has felt weak. That is why timing cannot be ignored now. Stay until the end, because one sentence later may explain why your struggle has lasted this long. I know you have asked why certain things seem close yet never fully arrive, why some seasons feel as though they begin but then slow again. Why hope rises and then waits longer than expected. There are answers you have searched for through effort, through prayer, through reflection, and yet some answers only become clear when your heart is quiet enough to receive them. Sometimes the reason struggle lasted is not because I forgot you. Sometimes struggle lasted because something within you still needed clearer truth before movement could safely continue. Sometimes delay remained because certain inner agreements had not yet been exposed. Sometimes what felt like silence was actually protection while deeper work continued. My child, one clear sentence can reveal what months of wandering could not explain. That is why you must remain attentive. Do not assume you already know what I will say because your past has taught you certain patterns. Do not decide too quickly that this is simply another comforting word. There is more here than comfort. There is explanation. There is direction. There is unveiling. I know how tired you are of almost reaching breakthrough and then feeling delayed again. I know what it feels like inside you when hope begins rising, and then caution quickly follows. I know how often you have prepared your heart only to wonder why visible change seems slower than expected. I know how exhausting it becomes to keep believing while also guarding yourself from disappointment. There are moments you barely allow yourself to imagine good fully because delay has taught you restraint. There are moments you hold hope quietly because speaking it loudly feels risky after waiting so long. My child, I know the private cost of repeated waiting. I know the fatigue that comes not from one disappointment but from many smaller delays gathered together over time. Please support our channel. Our work is to bring happiness in your life and devotion to God. And if you want, you can support me via Ko-Fi. The link is provided in the description and in the pinned comment. Show your support. This is why I speak with both tenderness and firmness now. Your tiredness must not decide how you hear what comes next. Your past delays must not become the voice that interprets my present word. Breakthrough delayed is not breakthrough denied, but tired hearts often confuse the two. That confusion must end. This is not just encouragement. This is your final warning before elevation. A warning does not mean fear. It means attention is required. Elevation near you cannot safely meet the same inward patterns that served only survival before. What is ahead cannot be carried by old hesitation, old emotional returns, old quick trust, old hidden agreements with fear. Something must be seen clearly now because what is near your life requires a cleaner inward place than what delay allowed you to tolerate before. I am warning because what rises next must not be slowed by what should already be released. If you walk away too soon, you may not understand what I protected for you. There are things you call delay that were protection. There are endings you mourn that guarded you. There are silences you question that kept harm from reaching deeper than it could have. There are closed moments that preserved what still belongs ahead of you. But if you leave too quickly, you may still call protection loss and still misunderstand why certain doors stayed closed longer than you wanted. So remain here. Listen slowly. Let your heart stay open. Because what I protected was never small, and what I am saying now is part of why what belongs to you still stands waiting in my timing. My child, listen carefully now, because this moment is not ordinary, and what I am saying to you must not be treated like something passing that can simply be heard halfway and forgotten. I know how many things ask for your attention each day. I know how many voices move around you, how many thoughts rise inside you before you even finish 1 hour of your day, how many small distractions try to divide what your heart is able to hold. But I tell you now with great tenderness and also with seriousness, this moment has been separated from ordinary time because your spirit needed this exact word before you move further. You may think you arrived here in a common way, that your eyes found this while doing what you always do, that this is just one more thing placed before you in a long line of many things. But I tell you that I watched the exact path that brought you here, and nothing about it escaped my sight. The moment your attention slowed, the moment your heart paused even slightly, the moment something inside you became still enough to receive heaven had already marked that instant. You are not here because chance arranged it. You are here because your inner life has reached a place where silence would no longer help you. There are moments when I allow quiet because quiet teaches trust. There are moments when I let you sit in waiting because waiting deepens your strength in ways you do not understand while you are inside it. But there are also moments when continued silence would begin harming what I am trying to strengthen in you, and this is one of those moments. I know the thoughts you have carried lately. I know how often your mind has returned to certain questions even when you tried to move past them. I know the small heaviness that has followed you into simple moments. I know how some things that once seemed manageable now feel heavier because your spirit has become more sensitive than before. That sensitivity is not weakness. It is not failure. It is not emotional instability. It is a sign that something deeper in you is listening more carefully now, and because it is listening, I must speak clearly enough that you do not misread what is happening inside your own heart. You were intentionally led here because I know what is forming inside your thoughts even before you decide what to do with those thoughts. I know when your mind begins creating conclusions before truth has fully spoken. I know when tiredness starts shaping your interpretation of what I am doing. I know when old disappointment quietly begins to color how you see present moments. My child, that is why I led you here before those quiet conclusions could settle deeper. You may not always notice how often I guide your attention gently, how often I move your focus away from what would only increase confusion and toward what carries peace. But I do this more than you know. Even now, what you call simple attention is often the result of my hand protecting your inward direction. There were many things that could have taken this moment from you. There were many chances for your mind to remain occupied elsewhere. Yet you are here, and that matters because your spirit needed to meet this word before your thoughts carried you too far into places that do not give life. Heaven marked this exact hour because there are moments that appear small on earth but hold great meaning in places you cannot see. Human eyes often call a moment ordinary because it does not arrive with visible signs, but heaven does not measure importance by outward noise. Some of the most important hours begin quietly, when no one around you notices that inwardly something important is happening. This hour is like that. Outwardly it may seem simple, but inwardly your spirit is standing where one clear word matters more than you know. There are inward doors that open first before visible doors ever move. There are decisions made inside the heart before any visible action happens. And what happens inside you now matters deeply because inward decisions shape what follows more than outward circumstances often do. You may have felt lately that something inside you is asking questions more often than before. Perhaps you noticed how easily your thoughts return to unfinished concerns. Perhaps you have felt moments where peace seemed present one hour, and then strangely distant the next without obvious reason. Perhaps you wondered why certain memories returned, why certain old feelings touched your heart again, why certain concerns suddenly felt sharper than before. My child, these things are not always random. Sometimes they happen because your spirit senses movement before your mind understands it. And when that happens, you need my voice more than ever because sensitivity without truth can quickly become confusion. That is why silence would now be harmful. Silence at this moment would allow too many old thoughts to speak without correction. Silence would allow tiredness to explain what only truth should define. Silence would leave room for fear to present itself as wisdom. Silence would let old emotional patterns borrow authority they no longer deserve. I will not allow that when your spirit is standing in such a tender place. I know the private places inside you where caution still lives because of what hurt before. I know how quickly your mind can revisit old conclusions when something new feels uncertain. I know how past delays taught you to protect yourself by expecting less. But my child, if I remain silent while those old habits begin speaking again, then what should become clear may become delayed simply because your heart listened too long to what no longer deserves power. I would not interrupt your attention unless your spirit needed immediate direction. Hear that deeply, because it is not a small statement. I know the difference between ordinary moments and urgent ones. I know when comfort is enough and when correction must come with greater weight. I know when your spirit simply needs peace and when it needs clear direction before another thought settles into place. This is one of those times where direction must come quickly, because what your heart receives now will influence how you stand in what is approaching. Immediate direction does not always mean danger is already here. Sometimes it means the next step requires clearer light than what you presently hold. Sometimes it means one inward adjustment now prevents much confusion later. I see how easily your heart can become tired when you have waited long for certain things to make sense. I see how often you have tried to remain steady even when inwardly you felt uncertain. I see how many times you kept moving outwardly while privately wondering if what you sensed mattered or if you were simply overthinking again. My child, what you feel matters, but what you feel must be interpreted correctly. Not every heaviness means trouble. Not every pause means something wrong. Not every inward stirring means fear should rise. Some stirrings come because your spirit is being prepared, because your heart is being called into greater attention, because something near your life requires you to listen more deeply than before. Comment Jesus, I love you more than life itself if He is truly your everything. That is why I speak now with care, because I do not want you naming this hour incorrectly. Do not call it random. Do not call it ordinary. Do not tell yourself this is simply another passing encouragement. There is purpose here because your spirit has reached a point where direction cannot be delayed without cost. Not a cost of punishment, but a cost of unnecessary confusion. I desire peace for you, but peace must rest on truth, not on avoidance. Truth must enter where old assumptions still linger. There are things you have asked inwardly without full words, and part of why this hour matters is because answers often begin where attention becomes still enough to hear them. I know your desire for clarity. I know your weariness with repeated delay. I know the private hope you still guard carefully because disappointment taught you not to hold it too openly. But I also know that what is ahead for you cannot be entered carrying all the same inward patterns that protected you in older seasons. Some patterns must be seen clearly before they quietly follow you forward. So I led you here intentionally. I marked this hour intentionally. I interrupted your attention intentionally. Not to burden you, but to keep you from carrying uncertainty longer than necessary. My child, heaven does not interrupt lightly. If this hour has been marked, it is because your heart matters deeply in this exact moment. Remain attentive now, because what follows this word is not separate from what your spirit has already been sensing. It is connected. And as you continue listening, you will understand more clearly why silence could no longer remain, why your attention had to be touched now, and why this moment, though quiet on the outside, has already become important in ways your heart will soon recognize more fully. My child, listen closely, because I need you to understand that you did not arrive at this moment by accident, and nothing about this meeting happened outside of my knowing. Long before your eyes reached these words, long before your thoughts slowed enough to stay here, long before your hand moved in this direction, I already knew the exact path your day would take. I knew what would try to pull your attention elsewhere. I knew the moments that would pass before this one. I knew what thoughts would sit quietly in your mind before you arrived here, and I knew the emotional weight you would carry into this exact moment even if no one around you could see it. This is why I tell you with certainty that what feels simple on the surface is not simple in the deeper places where I move. There are moments when you think life unfolds randomly, when you assume one small turn of attention means nothing, but I see the hidden arrangement inside moments that look ordinary to you. I know how to bring your heart into contact with what it needs before you even realize you need it. Divine arrangement often does not look dramatic when you are living inside it. It often appears small, quiet, almost ordinary, because my hand does not always announce itself loudly when it guides you. Sometimes I arrange your path through small pauses, through inner hesitations, through an unexpected slowing of your thoughts, through one sentence that catches your attention when many others do not. Sometimes I lead you not by visible force, but by touching something inside you that quietly says, "Stay here a little longer, listen more carefully, do not move yet." That is how I often work when your heart needs something deeper than quick comfort. I know how easily your day fills with many things, how quickly your mind moves from one concern to another, how often your attention is divided before you even notice it. Yet even within that, I know how to bring you exactly where my voice can meet you when the hour becomes important. You may think you chose this moment because something simply stood before you, but my child, I knew the exact second your spirit would become open enough to receive what I wanted to say. I knew that before this hour arrived. I knew the path of your thoughts before you woke up today. I knew what emotional weight would still remain from yesterday. I knew which memories would try to return, which questions would sit quietly beneath your outward calm, which hidden heaviness would still be present even if you tried not to name it. Nothing about your arrival surprised me because your timing was already known before you ever reached it. Before you reached this message, I already knew what your heart was carrying. I knew whether you arrived tired or hopeful, guarded or open, restless or quiet. I knew if your mind had already been busy before this moment. I knew if you had spent part of your strength pretending you were more settled than you truly felt. I knew if something inside you had already become heavy before anyone spoke to you today. My child, there are burdens you carry that others never fully notice, because you have learned how to continue while holding them quietly. You answer simply when inwardly much more is happening. You continue moving even when thoughts remain unfinished. You speak normally even when your heart has already asked questions you do not feel ready to explain. But I know all of that before one word reaches me from your lips. I knew the hidden emotional condition you brought here. I knew whether your spirit felt fragile today, whether your thoughts had become crowded, whether disappointment had quietly returned to the edges of your thinking, whether old concerns were standing near your peace again. I knew whether you felt strong outwardly but uncertain inwardly. I knew whether your heart was hoping for clarity but afraid of more delay. I knew whether you had already told yourself to expect little because waiting had tired you before. My child, I knew all of it before this moment opened before you. That is why I did not leave this meeting to chance. When your heart carries hidden weight, I do not trust random noise to shape your next inward step. I guide more carefully than you know. There were many possible directions your attention could have taken before now. Many thoughts could have held you elsewhere. Many distractions could have kept your spirit occupied just enough that you would not stay still long enough to hear me clearly. But I arranged this because your inner condition required something precise. Not general comfort, not distant encouragement, but a word placed exactly where your spirit is standing now. I know when general words are not enough. I know when your heart requires something that reaches beneath your surface and touches what you have not spoken aloud. Sometimes you wonder whether moments like this are truly meant for you, whether perhaps you are simply hearing words while your own life remains too complicated, too delayed, too uncertain to believe they apply deeply. But my child, that uncertainty itself is one of the reasons I arranged this moment. Because if I leave your heart alone too long inside hidden uncertainty, old voices begin speaking again. Old disappointments begin offering explanations that sound reasonable but are not true. Old delays begin teaching your heart to expect less than what I still intend. I will not allow those old voices to shape you without answer. Before you reached this moment, I had already watched the earlier parts of your day, and even before today, I had watched the earlier parts of your inward struggle. I saw the small heaviness that stayed after certain conversations ended. I saw the pause after certain thoughts returned. I saw how some feelings remained unnamed because you did not want to give them too much power. I saw the effort it took to keep moving when inwardly something still searched for clarity. My child, nothing hidden inside you arrives before me as hidden. This is why divine arrangement matters. I do not simply wait until you fully understand yourself before I move towards you. Often I come before clarity fully forms because I already know what is there. I already know when your spirit needs help naming what it feels. I already know when one word from me must arrive before your own thoughts begin building conclusions that are too heavy. Divine arrangement means I meet you before confusion settles too deeply. It means I guide your attention before tiredness interprets what your heart is carrying incorrectly. You may also need to understand that your timing matters because not every hour is equal. There are moments when your spirit is closed by exhaustion, moments when you hear but do not receive deeply, moments when words pass near you but do not enter because too much noise surrounds your inward life. But this hour is different because I knew you would be able to hear differently now. Even if you still feel tired, even if questions remain, even if your peace is not yet complete, there is openness here that did not exist in the same way before. That is why I waited for this exact moment. I knew before arrival that your heart had reached a place where silence could begin harming what should instead be strengthened. I knew before arrival that your spirit had become tender enough to hear truth more deeply. I knew before arrival that if I did not guide this moment, old emotional patterns might quietly return and begin speaking louder than they deserve. My child, understand the intimacy in this. Before you searched, I had already seen. Before you paused, I had already prepared. Before you listened, I had already known why listening would matter today. Nothing about this meeting began when you noticed it. It began before dawn, before your thoughts settled, before your attention even realized it was being led. And because I knew what your heart was carrying, I also knew what it needed first, not explanation of everything, not answers to every question at once, but the reassurance that you are not unseen inside hidden feelings. You are not random inside divine timing. You are not arriving late to something uncertain. You are arriving at a moment already known, already prepared, already held carefully by my awareness. So remain here with trust now. Let this truth settle deeply. You did not find this by accident because I do not leave important inner moments to chance when your spirit is quietly asking for direction. Before you reached this message, I already knew what your heart was carrying, and because I knew, I made sure your path arrived here exactly when it needed to. My child, listen very carefully now, because I want to show you something you did not fully see while it was happening. The enemy tried to distract you before this moment arrived, and what happened around you was not as simple as it looked. I do not say this to make you fearful, because fear is not what I am planting in your heart. I say it so you will understand why certain hours lately have felt unusually heavy, why some moments that should have felt simple became strangely difficult, and why even when nothing obvious was wrong, something inside you still felt unsettled. There are times when distraction does not arrive loudly. It does not come like an open battle. It comes quietly, through ordinary things, through tired thoughts, through scattered attention, through small interruptions that seem harmless enough to ignore. But what seems ordinary on the surface can still be strategic beneath it, because distraction does not always need darkness to succeed. He only needs enough noise to keep your spirit from hearing clearly. You may have noticed mental heaviness lately in ways you could not fully explain. Thoughts that normally would have passed quickly stayed longer than they should have. Small concerns became larger inside your mind than they needed to be. A question that should have remained simple suddenly felt heavier, deeper, harder to release. My child, I saw that. I saw how your thoughts became crowded even when outwardly little had changed. I saw moments when your mind tried to hold too many things at once, and because of that, peace felt further away than it should have. Mental heaviness often appears ordinary because you assume you are simply tired, simply thinking too much, simply carrying normal life. But sometimes heaviness arrives at exact moments when your spirit is close to receiving something important, because confusion hopes to fill the room before truth speaks clearly. There were delays around you too, and I know how deeply delays can affect your heart. Delays do more than slow outward events. They often press inward questions into places where patience has already been tested. You have known what it feels like to expect movement and then watch time continue without visible answer. You have known what it feels like to almost sense breakthrough and then feel one more pause appear. My child, delays have weight because they tempt your thoughts to build explanations before truth fully speaks. And in that space, distraction often enters quietly. It tells you to lower expectation. It tells you not to look deeply anymore. It tells you that perhaps nothing important is near, that perhaps this is just another ordinary day. But delay is often where attention is most vulnerable, because tired waiting easily becomes scattered attention if you are not careful. Even scrolling became part of the battle more than you realized. You may think it was only passing moments, only small movement of your attention from one thing to another, but I want you to understand how distraction works. It rarely begins with obvious resistance. It often begins with endless motion that never settles. One thing after another, one voice after another, one image after another, one thought after another, until your spirit becomes full of movement but empty of stillness. My child, the enemy knows that if your heart never pauses deeply, truth struggles to settle where it needs to settle. That is why distraction often appears as endless movement without depth. Not because every small thing is harmful by itself, but because too much scattered attention weakens inward listening. Tight Father, I return home to you if you're running back into His grace. And share this video. My child, stop for a moment and listen carefully, because I did not allow this message to reach you by accident. You may think you simply arrived here because of an ordinary moment, because your hand moved without thought, because your eyes happened to stop here. But I tell you now with deep certainty that nothing about this meeting is ordinary. I know the hour you are in. I know the weight sitting quietly inside your chest. I know the thoughts that came to you before this day even began, and I know the questions you did not speak because you were tired of repeating them. I know how often you have continued outwardly while inwardly carrying things you could not explain to anyone around you. That is why I am speaking before anything else touches your heart today. That is why I am reaching through your noise, through your routine, through your private thoughts, and calling your attention with urgency, because there are moments when I speak gently, and there are moments when I speak in a way that must stop everything around you. And this is one of those moments. Do not rush past these words. Do not tell yourself you will return later. I am speaking now because now matters more than you realize. There are hours when one word changes the direction of many hidden things, and you are standing inside such an hour now. I canceled what could have waited because your spirit could not wait any longer. There were many things that could remain silent, many matters that could stay untouched for another day, but what concerns you in this moment could not remain delayed. I have watched your inner strength stretch itself beyond what others know. I have watched you answer people with calm words while carrying storms they never noticed. I have watched you lie awake while others thought you were resting. I have watched you trying to understand why certain feelings returned, why certain memories pressed harder than usual, why certain fears seemed near again even though you believed you had already moved past them. My child, there are moments when your soul begins to feel what your mind has not yet understood, and because of that, I could not allow silence to continue. Your spirit has been calling to me in ways deeper than spoken prayer. Even the sigh you did not notice reached me. Even the quiet heaviness you tried to dismiss was clear before me. That is why I moved now. That is why I interrupted what could have remained untouched. You may not yet see the full reason, but soon you will understand that this interruption is mercy. Before the first light touched this day, your name was already on my lips. Before you opened your eyes, before your thoughts formed clearly, before you remembered what still troubled you, I had already looked toward you with attention. I knew how this day would begin for you. I knew what would attempt to settle on your thoughts. I knew the exact feeling that would move through your chest before anyone around you spoke a word. I knew what memory would try to rise. I knew what uncertainty would quietly stand near your peace. And because I knew, I did not wait until your strength dropped further before speaking. My child, understand this deeply. You are not unseen in your earliest moments. Even before your morning begins, I know the shape of your need. There are things you call hidden because others do not see them, but nothing in you is hidden from me. I know when your smile carries effort. I know when your silence carries pain. I know when your thoughts begin asking if what you hoped for will ever truly arrive. And because I know, I speak before fear finishes forming. Your name was already before me while the world still slept. Your need was already known before you tried to carry it again by yourself. I broke silence because what is near you cannot arrive without warning. There are things approaching your life that require understanding, and I will not allow you to step toward them unaware. Not everything near you carries danger, but not everything near you should be entered without discernment. This is why I speak with such directness now. Sometimes what approaches looks ordinary at first. Sometimes it appears small, harmless, familiar, even comfortable. But if you do not hear my voice clearly, you may fail to understand what is truly before you. I know what is near your path. I know what thoughts are beginning to form around decisions you have not fully named yet. I know what emotions are trying to return. I know what old voices still try to speak when you become tired. And because of that, I will not leave you without warning. Silence would not serve you now. Quiet distance would not protect you now. You need clarity before what comes next fully reaches your attention. This is why I speak firmly, because what stands close to your life must be met with eyes that see deeper than appearance. There are moments when heaven moves quietly, but today I stopped everything to make sure you hear me. There are days when my work unfolds in ways you do not notice until later. There are seasons when I answer quietly, arranging what you cannot yet see, moving what you will only understand after time has passed. But today carries another kind of urgency. Today requires you to hear before delay hardens into confusion. Today requires you to notice that what you feel is not random and what you sense is not empty emotion. I know you have asked at times whether what touches your heart is truly from me or simply from your own tiredness. I know you have questioned your own sensitivity because too much has happened around you. But listen carefully now. The stirring within you is not meaningless. The unusual pull you have felt, the strange awareness, the deep sense that something is shifting, these things are not empty feelings. They are part of why I speak now. Heaven is not careless with timing. When I press upon your attention this way, it is because the moment deserves your full listening. If you skip this now, you may miss why your spirit has felt restless since yesterday. You noticed it even if you tried to ignore it. Something felt unsettled, not fully explainable, not entirely visible, yet present enough that your peace did not sit the same way. Perhaps you tried to continue normally. Perhaps you told yourself it would pass. Perhaps you blamed tiredness, distraction, ordinary stress. But I tell you now, there are moments when your spirit notices movement before your mind finds words for it. Restlessness does not always mean danger, but it often means your inner being has sensed that something requires attention. My child, your spirit has been pressing against something your heart needs to hear. That is why you must not dismiss this moment quickly. The answer to what you have felt is connected to what I am saying now. If you move away too fast, you may return to asking why peace felt distant when understanding was already reaching for you. Type Jesus, set my heart ablaze for you if you're hungry for more of Him. I know what you felt when no one noticed your fear. I know the exact moment your thoughts became heavier while your face remained calm. I know when you answered others while quietly carrying concern they could not read. I know how often you chose not to explain because you felt tired of describing what had no simple shape. Fear does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly beneath ordinary conversation. Sometimes it hides beneath responsibility. Sometimes it comes disguised as caution, disguised as delay, disguised as emotional distance. But I know its voice when it tries to move near you. I know how it speaks through old memories, through past disappointments, through things that once hurt deeply enough that your heart learned caution. And I know how often you have fought those feelings without anyone seeing the effort it took. My child, nothing about that hidden struggle escaped me. I saw the exact second your confidence weakened and the exact second you tried to recover it before anyone noticed. This is not random timing. This is not ordinary timing. This is a moment arranged before you woke up. Before you considered what today would hold, this meeting was already set. Before you reached this point, this word had already been prepared because I knew what this hour would require. You may think many things in your day happen without meaning, but I tell you there are moments carefully placed because one needed word at the right time prevents deeper confusion later. I know exactly when your heart is open enough to hear what it resisted before. I know when your weariness has reached the place where truth must come gently but firmly. I know when delay would cost too much. This is why timing matters now, not later. Not after another wave of doubt, not after another long cycle of inner struggle. Now, there is something approaching your life that required my voice before it arrives. I do not say this to make you fearful. I say this so you remain awake in spirit. What approaches may carry blessing, may carry decision, may carry exposure, may carry movement. But whatever form it takes, you must not meet it with yesterday's thinking. Something is changing around you, even if quietly. Something is moving beyond what your eyes fully understand. There are doors, conversations, realizations, endings, beginnings, some visible, some hidden that are drawing near your path. And before they stand fully before you, my voice must stand first. Because when my voice leads, confusion loses strength. When my truth arrives first, fear loses its power to define what comes next. Stay until the end, because what I reveal first will explain what I protected you from. There are many things you never saw because I did not allow them to fully reach you. There are moments you called delay that were protection. There are silences you called absence that were covering. There are endings you grieve that carried hidden mercy. And there are answers you still seek that can only be understood when you first see what did not happen because my hand remained near you. My child, not everything you mourned was loss. Not everything denied was rejection. Not everything delayed was forgotten. Some things were stopped because they could not remain if what I prepared for you was to survive. So remain attentive now, because what I begin saying here is only the first opening of something your heart has needed for longer than you know. My child, hear me carefully now, because what I am saying to you in this moment could not be delayed for another hour, another night, or another day. There are words that I allow to come gently over time, and there are words that I release only when the exact moment has arrived, when the weight of what surrounds you has reached a point where silence would no longer serve your heart. This is one of those moments. I am not speaking because everything around you is falling apart. I am speaking because something deeper is happening inside you, something even you have struggled to explain. And I know that if I do not speak now, you may continue carrying questions that were never meant to grow heavier inside your spirit. You may have thought this day would pass like many others, that you would move through your hours with the same hidden thoughts, the same quiet weight, the same effort to remain steady while inwardly asking what exactly is shifting around you. But I tell you now, this moment was not left to chance. I did not allow your attention to stop here without purpose. I called for this exact meeting because I know how sensitive your spirit is right now, even if you yourself have only partly understood it. Please support our channel. Our work is to bring happiness in your life and devotion to God. And if you want, you can support me via Ko-Fi. The link is provided in the description and in the pinned comment. Show your support. There are times when your outer life continues normally while your inner life begins standing at the edge of something very important. That is where you are now. Others may look at you and see only another ordinary day, but I see the deeper movement within you. I see how easily certain words touch you lately. I see how certain memories return more strongly than before. I see how your heart has become alert in ways you cannot fully explain. I see how small moments now seem to carry unusual weight, how silence sometimes feels louder than noise, how even when you try to rest, part of your spirit remains awake, listening, searching, wondering why something feels unfinished inside you. My child, this is why I interrupted. This is why I reached into your attention and asked you to stop. Because when your spirit reaches such a sensitive place, you must not remain without my voice. I know the difference between ordinary tiredness and a deeper stirring, and what you are carrying now is not ordinary. This message could not wait because heaven has already recognized what this hour means for you. You do not always see what is forming around your life, but nothing around you unfolds outside my sight. There are moments that seem small to human understanding yet carry deep meaning in the unseen places where your future is already being shaped. This hour is one of those moments. The thoughts you have entertained lately, the emotions you have been trying to understand, the quiet questions you have asked without words, the subtle pressure you have felt when no one else was near, none of it has escaped me. You are standing in a moment where one clear word can guard your peace, where one clear truth can stop confusion before it grows roots, where one reminder from me can keep you from listening too long to voices that do not know your true path. That is why heaven did not treat this hour lightly. That is why this moment became important before you even noticed it yourself. I would not interrupt if it were not necessary. Understand that deeply. I do not move upon your attention with urgency unless there is reason. I know when silence can teach you, and I know when silence must end because what surrounds you now requires direct clarity. I know there have been many moments when you wished I would speak sooner, when you asked why answers felt slow, why direction felt hidden, why your heart remained uncertain while you kept trying to trust. But my child, urgency does not come because I was absent before. Urgency comes because certain moments carry consequences if left without light. And now is such a moment. Not because disaster stands before you, but because your heart is standing where truth must become stronger than fear, stronger than old thoughts, stronger than habits of doubt that have tried before to settle over you. You have entered a sensitive spiritual hour, and I need you to understand what that means. It means your spirit has become more aware than usual, even when your mind cannot yet explain what it senses. It means you are noticing things differently because your inner being is already responding to movements around your life that your eyes cannot fully name. It means certain things that once seemed easy to ignore now press harder against your peace because your spirit knows something important is near. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is not instability. It is not failure. It is the sign that something within you is listening more closely than before. Yet sensitivity without my voice can become confusion if you allow fear to speak louder than truth. That is why I came directly now, because what you feel must not be interpreted through old pain, old disappointment, or old memories that taught you to expect loss whenever change begins. I know how quickly your thoughts can search for explanations when your heart feels unsettled. I know how easily you begin reviewing old experiences, trying to understand whether what you feel now resembles what once hurt you before. I know how your mind can travel backward when your spirit is actually being called forward. This is why I speak now with care and firmness. You are not standing where you stood before. This hour is not repeating old pain. This moment carries different meaning, and if you listen carefully, you will feel the difference. I am not allowing old fear to name what is happening inside you. I am not allowing yesterday's wounds to define today's movement. My voice must come first. Heaven recognized this exact hour as critical because your heart has reached a place where one decision inwardly matters more than you know. Sometimes the most important choices are not visible choices made in public. Sometimes they are quiet decisions made inside the heart, whether to trust or withdraw, whether to listen or assume, whether to stay open or return to self-protection. These quiet inward decisions shape much more than you realize. And right now, you are standing close to such a place. I see how easy it would be for you to tell yourself that nothing important is happening, to dismiss what you feel, to continue carrying hidden tension without asking why it has increased. But if you do that, you may miss the invitation hidden inside this hour. This moment is not only about warning, it is also about preparation. It is about helping your heart remain soft where fear tries to make it guarded. You are chosen in this moment not because you are perfect, not because you have understood everything correctly, not because your faith has never trembled, but because I know exactly what your spirit needs right now. I know how much you have carried silently. I know how often you have continued without asking others to notice what cost you strength. I know how many times you adjusted yourself so others would not see what was pressing inside you. Yet none of that remained hidden from me. Even what you barely understood in yourself remained clear before me. That is why I address you directly now, not generally, not distantly, but personally. This is not a word thrown into the air hoping someone may receive it. This is a word directed with intention because your heart needed to hear that I see exactly where you stand. I know there is part of you that still wonders whether moments like this truly belong to you, whether such direct attention from me is really meant for your life, whether perhaps others are stronger, clearer, more deserving of such closeness. But my child, let that thought fall now. I do not come because you earned this moment. I come because I know the value of your heart even when you question it yourself. I know what can be strengthened if you listen now. I know what can be healed if you remain open now. I know what confusion can lose power if truth reaches you before doubt gathers itself again. Say your will, not mine, Lord, if your soul is surrendered completely to Him. There are things you have not yet fully seen that make this hour important. There are inner places in you where old fatigue still lingers, where old caution still watches quietly, where old disappointment still waits to interpret new movement as danger. That is why I interrupted. Because if I leave those old voices unanswered, they speak too quickly when new moments begin. And I will not allow old sorrow to speak first over a season that requires fresh understanding. So listen with calm now. Do not rush these words. Do not treat this as ordinary comfort only. This is direction wrapped in care. This is urgency wrapped in love. This is my hand touching your attention because I know exactly how near you are to understanding something that has felt unclear for too long. I would not interrupt if it were not necessary, and because I have interrupted, know this with certainty. You matter deeply in this hour. Your inner life matters. Your peace matters. Your next inward step matters. Heaven did not overlook this moment, and neither should you. Remain here with me, because what follows will make clearer why this hour had to be touched before anything else moved further around you. My child, before the morning arrived, before the first sound of the world began again, before light touched the edges of your room, your name was already on my lips. Before you reached for another day, before your thoughts fully returned, before your eyes opened to what was waiting for you, I had already turned my attention toward you with tenderness and deep care. You may think your mornings begin when you become aware of them, but long before you notice the day, I'd already know what it carries for you. I know the first feeling that rises inside you before you even move. I know whether peace greets you or whether a quiet heaviness reaches your chest before your feet touch the ground. I know whether your thoughts return gently or whether they arrive already carrying unfinished weight from the night before. And this morning, before anything touched you, I was already near, because I knew what your heart was carrying even before you found words for it. I watched you before morning because there are moments when your soul speaks louder in silence than in speech. There are hours when you do not know how deeply you are reaching toward me because even your own thoughts feel too tired to form clearly. I saw that in you. I saw the way sleep has not always brought true rest. I saw the way your body became still while your mind continued moving through unfinished thoughts. I saw how certain nights felt longer than they should have, how the darkness around you became filled with quiet questions you did not know how to answer. You tried to close your eyes, but part of your spirit remained awake, carrying things too heavy to name. I saw the moments when you turned from one side to another, not because you were uncomfortable in body, but because something deeper inside refused to settle. My child, I was there for every restless hour. Even when no one else knew the night was difficult for you, I knew. Even when you decided not to explain your tiredness the next day, I understood exactly where it came from. I know the nights when you were not crying outwardly, but inwardly your heart felt full. I know the nights when you stared into darkness with thoughts moving quietly through places you do not show to others. I know the early hours when memories returned without invitation. I know when old concerns became active again, when unfinished fears tried to speak, when uncertainty touched places in you that had seemed calm during the day. You may have told yourself that no one could understand those hidden hours, but I tell you now that I understood every one of them. I was not absent from your sleeplessness. I was not distant when you lay there wondering why peace would not settle fully. I saw it each second when your heart tried to carry what it did not know how to release. Before morning, I also saw your early thoughts, the ones that arrived before you chose them. I know how quickly your mind can return to unfinished concerns. I know how certain thoughts greet you before words do, how some mornings begin with wait before clarity. There are days when you wake and already feel something pressing, even before you can explain why. My child, I know that feeling in you. I know when your first thought is not joy but wondering. I know when your first inward movement is not rest but concern. I know when your spirit searches quietly, asking what today will bring, whether what you fear will remain distant, whether what you hope for will ever fully arrive. Nothing in those first moments escapes me. Before you even speak inwardly, I know what your heart is carrying. There are hidden heavinesses you have learned to carry quietly. You do not always speak them because you fear repeating yourself, because some feelings seem too difficult to explain, because some burdens have stayed long enough that you no longer expect others to understand them fully. But I know every hidden weight. I know the burden that sits beneath your ordinary conversations. I know the effort it takes for you to answer simply when your inner world feels much fuller than your words. I know the small pauses where your mind drifts because something deeper is asking for relief. I know the heaviness you dismiss because you think you should already be stronger than this. But my child, I do not ask you to pretend strength before me. I already know the exact places where you still feel tired. I saw the exact burden before you spoke, before one prayer formed, before one sentence reached your lips, before even one clear thought turned upward. I already knew what sat inside your heart. That is why your name was before me before dawn, because your need did not wait until language arrived. Your burden spoke long before words. There are things within you that even now remain difficult to explain clearly, yet nothing unclear in you is unclear to me. I know whether your burden today comes from fear, from memory, from waiting, from disappointment, from uncertainty, or from simple exhaustion after carrying too much inwardly for too long. I know whether what presses you is visible or hidden. I know whether you are troubled by what happened, by what may happen, or by what still has not happened. I know all of it before you begin. I heard what you did not even know how to pray. There were moments when your heart reached toward me without language, when all you had was silence, sighing, or inward ache. You may have thought that because you did not speak clearly, nothing was being said. But I tell you now, I heard everything. I heard the prayer hidden inside your tired breathing. I heard the question inside your silence. I heard the longing inside your stillness. I heard the fear you tried not to admit even to yourself. I heard the hope you barely dared to keep alive because disappointment had taught you caution. I heard the inward cry when you could not shape it into sentences. Nothing was lost simply because it remained wordless. My child, the language of your heart has never been hidden from me. I heard you when you did not know whether you were praying or simply enduring. I heard you when your thoughts became scattered and you wondered whether anything clear was reaching heaven. I heard you when your words stopped halfway because emotion had no clear path. I heard you when you simply looked upward inside yourself and hoped that somehow I understood what you could not explain. I understood completely. There has never been one moment when your heart reached for me and I failed to know what it meant. That is why intimacy must begin here. You must know that before mourning, before speech, before effort, before clarity, you were already known. You were not waiting for my attention, you already had it. You were not trying to become visible, you already were. You were not trying to explain enough for me to understand. I already understood before explanation began. Even what you still cannot name fully is already held in my knowing. When you lay awake while others slept, I knew. When you woke early because your thoughts would not stay quiet, I knew. When you looked calm while carrying heaviness no one around you noticed, I knew. When you tried to decide whether what you felt mattered enough to speak about, I knew. And because I knew, I placed your name before me before dawn, not as a distant act, but as the tenderness of one who refuses to let hidden burdens remain unseen. You may sometimes wonder why certain mornings feel emotionally heavier than others, why certain dawns arrive with unusual awareness, why some early moments seem full before the day even begins. My child, often those are the hours when your spirit is nearest to revealing what it has hidden during busier hours. Morning often uncovers what daytime distracts. And when those moments come, I do not look away. I come closer. I listen more carefully. I watch more tenderly. So understand this now. Your name was on my lips before dawn because your life is never outside my attention, especially not in hidden hours. Before the day asked anything of you, I already knew what needed to be spoken over you. Before anyone noticed you, I had already noticed every movement within you. Before you asked whether this day would carry strength, I had already looked at your burden and prepared my voice to meet it. And even now, as you listen, know this deeply. What you have carried silently has not been carried alone. What you struggled to explain has not remained unknown. What you feared was too hidden to matter has already been held before me with full understanding. I heard what you did not even know how to pray, and because I heard it, I am speaking now with the same closeness with which I watched you before morning began. My child, listen closely now, because what I am about to tell you is not meant to frighten you, and it is not spoken to place fear inside your heart. I am speaking because there are moments when love must become clear warning, and there are moments when care must become direct guidance. This is one of those moments. I do not warn you because disaster is already upon you. I warn you because something near you must be understood before you move too casually around it. There are seasons when danger does not appear with noise. It does not arrive wearing obvious darkness. It often comes softly, wearing familiarity, wearing comfort, wearing something that looks easy enough to accept without question. That is why I need your full attention now, because what is near you does not immediately look harmful, yet it carries an effect you must not ignore. You are standing close to something that looks harmless but carries delay. I want you to hear that deeply. Delay is not always created by visible wrong. Sometimes delay enters quietly through things you think are small, through choices you tell yourself are temporary, through thoughts you allow to stay longer than they should, through emotional returns you believe are harmless because they feel familiar. But familiar does not always mean safe. Easy does not always mean right. What feels close to your past does not always belong to your future. That is why I speak now with spiritual urgency, because what is before you requires discernment more than comfort. I know how easily the human heart reaches toward what feels known when it becomes tired. I know how quickly old feelings can seem attractive when new clarity has not fully arrived. I know how tempting it is to revisit what once seemed to offer relief, even if later it carried heaviness. And because I know this, I will not remain silent while you stand this close to something that could quietly slow what I have already begun in you. The danger is not loud, is not obvious. It does not come with immediate signs that would make you step back at once. That is why many fail to notice it early. What stands near you may appear small enough to justify. It may look manageable. It may seem like something you can touch briefly without consequence. But my child, what delays you often begins in small permissions. A thought repeated long enough becomes agreement. A feeling revisited long enough becomes attachment. A distraction allowed often enough becomes distance. This is why I am speaking before anything settles deeper. I am not warning because you have already fallen into error. I am warning because I know how near certain things are to your attention, and I know what happens if they are welcomed without light. You are standing close to a wrong decision that may not feel wrong because it presents itself quietly. It may seem practical. It may even seem harmless because it does not immediately oppose what you believe. But not every decision that appears harmless leads where peace remains strong. Some decisions do not wound immediately. They simply slow what was meant to move. Some decisions do not break you suddenly. They slowly pull your heart away from clear direction until confusion begins speaking louder than conviction. That is why I need you to pause before deciding quickly about anything your spirit has already questioned. If something inside you has hesitated, do not dismiss that hesitation too quickly. Sometimes your spirit recognizes what your mind is still trying to explain. Write your word is my everlasting truth. Lord, if you stand firm on Scripture's promise, and share this video.